أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وآله الطاهرين. This is the last session that we will be having for this topic of an introduction to Islam and the requirements of time. And the main reference that we have been using throughout this course is the book written by Shaheed Murtada Mutahari rahmatullahi alayh, which was initially a series of lectures that he gave, and then it was transferred into a book. This book is in Persian and it is called Islam va Muqtazayat Zaman, or Islam va Niyazhay Zaman, Islam and the needs of time, the needs for time. And its central focus is on how is Islam able to have that compatibility with all of the changes that are occurring in today's modern era. And of course, it's very, very interesting book to read. It's far away from technical jargon or anything else. It's very straightforward. And if you do read Persian, it is something highly recommended, even though it was something given maybe 30 plus years ago, but it's very much relevant to our society today. And as someone who wants to learn and research and investigate into the precepts of Islam, looking at such references is very, very important. Ultimately, one of the things that we do need to have is a critical mind, especially when it comes to religion. Having a critical mind does not mean rejecting. When someone says critique or criticizing, unfortunately, the first thing that comes to our mind is rejecting. That's why I'm saying having a critical mind. Criticizing, which means to probably stand against or to be against or to reject, is one thing, and having a critical mind is something else. Naqadeh or naqd, which means to be critical in your process of thinking, especially when it comes to religion, to make sure that you look into things but don't be arrogant about it. We shouldn't be people who, are adamant about our opinion and refuse to kind of allow ourselves to, be persuaded otherwise. And even when evidence is presented to us, we still stick to our gun. And all these unfortunate things that we might see among some people. Today's topic is about relativity, and it's very important for us to see this within the chronology of what we have been discussing, because here it is a way of understanding what does it mean by God's wisdom or God's knowledge, or looking for the reason behind things, or trying to understand what does justice mean, and whether or not it all fits within this very, very difficult puzzle of our lives. And our lives really are difficult as well. And relativism here, it's not the relativism that is usually studied in physics and chemistry and that, but relativity here is opposite to the absolute. And in our Islamic terms, you have the mutlaq, which is absolute, and then you have the nisbi, which is relative. Relative here means that it changes depending on circumstances, or there is no fixed, established, absolute view or idea or belief about it. It means that it is something that could be different from one individual to another individual, from one case to another case. And that's kind of like the privatization of ideology, where, in relation to me, I believe that there is nothing wrong with, for example, abortion, and in relation to him or her, they believe that there is something wrong with something like abortion. I don't know if the example is valid in this particular circumstance, but I don't want to restrict myself to talking about, even though moral relativity is something that needs to be focused on, but there's also things to do with social relativity or religious relativity, which is what is referred to as religious pluralism, or legislative relativity as far as laws are concerned. Who says that one set of laws, which is, for example, presented by this particular country or this particular state, supersedes or outweighs another set of laws that is given by another religion or another society? Here we need to also understand that another way of looking at relativity is one thing might be good now, bad another time, or bad now, good in another time. Let's make it very clear that we're not talking about mannerism or behavior or conduct or interaction or education or things to do with that, because that in itself is something, that could change. You could be eating this particular meal now in this society, you could be traveling to another society and be having something different. They could also have different kinds of ways of mannerism and courtesy and things like that. And that's why there's a difference between akhlaq and adab. When it comes to akhlaq is based on the three faculties: al-quwwa al-aqliyya, the rational faculty; al-quwwa al-shahawiyya, which is the faculty of desire. And desire here does not mean sexual lust. Desire here means that you want to obtain that which benefits you. So you desire something that is going to be useful for you. You want to have those things that are going to be of your interest. Jalbul manafi', as they say. And then the third faculty is al-quwwa al-ghadabiyya, which is the faculty of anger. And here anger doesn't mean to be, have a bad temper. It means that you repel that which harms you. You stay away from and avoid and keep far things that are going to harm you. This is the nature of a human being, and we need all three of them. What governs all of them? Your aql, your ability to rationalize. When you desire food, for example, you go out and you pursue food, but your aql tells you, by the way, don't transgress someone else's rights. Be fair when it comes to your pursuing of food. Also, don't become gluttonous and eat excessively, because it's not going to be for your health. Because if your desire is left all alone, and if your anger is left all alone, it will turn into lust. It will turn into having a bad temper, and none of that is good. Even though you want to repel something bad happening to you or something evil happening to you, you need to stand up to yourself. Standing up to yourself when someone is, for example, coming to attack you or something like that, does not mean that you attack them back and you pursue them and you run after them and you hunt them down and you seek revenge. That's not the correct, healthy way of looking at al-quwwa al-ghadabiyya. And that's what akhlaq does. Akhlaq says balance between these qiwa, between these faculties, where you don't exceed each of the two sides of either becoming a reckless person, we mentioned that was tahawwur, or you become a coward person, which means jubn. No, shuja'a. Shuja'a is a characteristic, a positive moral feature. Generosity is also a positive moral feature. Being generous means you are neither stingy nor you are careless when it comes to your money and your wealth. And the same example with everything else that we are able to look at. Now, this sense of being critical mind and making sure that we have deep analysis, especially in the affairs of our religion, means that we find what does akhlaq mean and what does morality mean, and we see whether or not it is relative, whether or not it can be taken in the sense of it meaning something for someone and something else for someone else. Justice, for example. Let's have a look at what the Quran says in Surah Al-Nahl, verse number 90. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Inna Allah ya'muru bil-adl. Indeed, a God orders justice, wal-ihsan, and good conduct, wa ita'i dhil qurba, and giving to relatives, fulfilling the needs of your relatives, وَيَنْهَى عَنِ الْفَحْشَاءِ, and forbids immorality, fahsha, immorality, وَالْبَغِي, and bad conduct, وَالْمُنْكَرِ وَالْبَغِي, and bad conduct and oppression. Baghi means oppression. يَعِظُكُمْ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَذَكَّرُونَ. He admonishes you so that you may become reminded. Now, this particular ayah that speaks about justice and speaks about making sure that you stay righteous, and then that you stay away from immorality, you stay away from bad conduct, you stay away from oppression. Now, if the definition of these things were vague, or if they were relative based on time and place and individual, then there would be no meaning for this ayah, for this verse. It would be meaningless, because it means that there is no understanding, no universal understanding for anything to do with morality or moral conduct. And that's why it's very important to go beyond the slogans and beyond the issue of, in my opinion, in your opinion, and say if there is such a thing as absolute morality, or morality being absolute and not being relative. This is an important topic. It's something that needs to be looked into, and of course we need to understand what does justice mean in all of this as well. And Shaheed Mutahari, he says there's a difference between equality and justice. There's a difference between understanding the important and understanding the more important. There's a difference between looking at things in its surface value and looking at things with a critical eye, and making sure that one is able to relate all of this to the spiritual element of religion. Hopefully we will be able to pursue these kind of topics in other further advanced courses, and speak about this issue of relativity. What does philosophical relativity mean? What does social relativity mean? What does religious relativity mean, or religious pluralism? How are we able to understand the universality of justice? And how can we see morality or moral conduct to be something that all human beings should be looking at with one particular central focus? This is inshallah something that we might be able to discuss in other courses. Thank you all very much for your participation. If there are any comments or any issues that need to be spoken about, please do send your feedback and your information about this brief course that we had, and keep us in your dua as well. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wa salatu wa salamu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa alihi tahirin.